Before barcodes, before organic sections, before grocery stores became supermarkets the size of football fields, shopping in the 1970s meant pushing a metal cart down narrow aisles filled with products that have completely vanished.
She just takes Swanson TV turkey dinners from the freezing compartment of our refrigerator when I'm a little off schedule. Oh.
These weren't niche items. They were everywhere. Your mom bought them every week. You ate them without question, and then they disappeared so completely you forgot they ever existed. Here are 25 grocery items from the 1970s you forgot were everywhere. Let's remember what we lost. The stovetop entertainment. Before microwave popcorn, there was Jiffy Pop, the aluminum pan with a foil dome that expanded like a silver balloon as kernels popped over your stove. This wasn't just food. This was theater. You'd place the pan on a burner, hold the wooden handle, and shake it constantly over medium heat. Within minutes, the flat foil top would start rising, expanding into a dome as popcorn filled the interior. Kids would gather around the stove, watching the transformation like it was a magic trick. The shaking was crucial. Stop shaking and kernels would burn. Shake too aggressively and you'd tear the foil. The perfect technique required constant, gentle motion, a skill that separated experienced Jiffy Pop makers from amateurs who ended up with half-popped kernels and burnt smell. When the popping slowed, you'd remove the pan from heat, carefully tear open the foil top, and reveal a mountain of fresh popcorn. The smell would fill the kitchen. Butter, salt, and that distinctive popcorn aroma that meant movie night or special occasion. Jiffy Pop appeared in every grocery store in the 1970s, usually displayed near the popcorn kernels and cooking oils. It cost about 79 cents per pan. Expensive compared to bulk kernels, but worth it for the experience. Families would buy multiple pans for parties, letting kids take turns making their own. The pan was disposable, which felt luxurious in an era when most cooking required washing dishes afterward. You made your popcorn, ate it, threw away the pan, no cleanup, no storage, just entertainment and snacks in one aluminum package. Today's microwave popcorn is faster and more convenient, but it can't replicate the ritual of watching Jiffy Pop expand on your stove, the anticipation building with every pop. The breakfast NASA. Approved. Tang wasn't just orange drink mix. It was space-age nutrition in a jar, endorsed by astronauts and marketed as the breakfast of the future. If it was good enough for men walking on the moon, it was good enough for your kitchen table. The powder came in large glass jars with orange labels featuring astronauts or space shuttles. You'd scoop 2 or 3 spoonfuls into a glass, add cold water, stir vigorously, and watch the powder dissolve into bright orange liquid. The color was unnaturally vivid, more orange than actual oranges, but that artificial brightness was part of the appeal. The taste was sweet, tangy, and vaguely citrus-like. It wasn't orange juice. It wasn't trying to be orange juice. It was Tang, its own category of beverage that kids loved and adults tolerated because it was fortified with vitamin C. Every grocery store in the 1970s had an entire shelf section dedicated to powdered drink mixes, and Tang dominated that space. The jars were substantial, 18 ounces of powder that made dozens of servings. At $1.29 per jar, it was cheaper than buying orange juice and more exciting because of the space connection. Mothers loved Tang because it didn't require refrigeration until mixed. The powder sat in the pantry indefinitely, ready whenever kids wanted a drink. No spoilage, no waste, just add water. The NASA connection was brilliant marketing. General Foods had supplied Tang to astronauts on Gemini missions in 1965, and by the 1970s, that association had become Tang's entire identity. Commercials showed astronauts drinking Tang in space. Print ads featured rockets and moon landings. Drinking Tang made you feel connected to space exploration. Kids would make it too strong, using extra scoops to intensify the flavor. creating a syrupy sweet concentrate that turned their tongues orange. Parents would dilute it, stretching the jar further and reducing sugar intake. Today's orange juice market is dominated by fresh squeezed and not from concentrate varieties. Tang still exists, but occupies a tiny nostalgic corner of grocery stores, no longer the space-age miracle drink that defined 1970s breakfast tables. The original frozen convenience TV dinners in the 1970s came in segmented aluminum trays covered with printed cardboard. They weren't gourmet, they weren't healthy, but they were revolutionary. Complete meals that went from freezer to oven to table in 25 minutes with zero preparation. The trays had 3 or 4 compartments. The largest held the main course: fried chicken, meatloaf, Salisbury steak, turkey with gravy. Smaller compartments held sides: mashed potatoes, corn, green beans, sometimes a dessert like apple cobbler or brownie. The cooking process was ritualistic. Peel back the cardboard cover, but don't remove it completely. Place the tray on a baking sheet. Bake at 425 °C for 25 minutes. The aluminum would heat up, cooking everything simultaneously. The compartments kept foods separate, preventing the brownie from tasting like turkey. The meals were designed for eating in front of the television, hence the name. Families would gather in living rooms, TV dinners on folding trays, watching evening programs together. This was modern living, convenience, entertainment, and family time combined. The box that stretched ground beef. Hamburger Helper appeared in 1971 and immediately became a 1970s grocery store staple. The concept was brilliant. A box containing dried pasta, powdered sauce mix, and seasonings that transformed 1 pound of ground beef into a complete meal for a family of 4. The boxes were colorful and distinctive, featuring the Helper mascot, a white glove with a face. Each variety had its own color scheme. Cheeseburger macaroni was orange, beef stroganoff was red, lasagna was green. The boxes lined grocery store shelves in rainbow formation, promising quick, easy, economical dinners. The preparation was simple enough for teenagers to manage. Brown 1 pound of ground beef in a skillet. Drain the fat. Add the pasta from the box, the sauce mix, water, and milk. Stir, cover, simmer for 15 minutes. Done. A complete meal from 5 ingredients, most of which came from a single box. The appeal was economic. Ground beef was the cheapest meat available, usually around 89 cents per pound in the mid-1970s. 1 box of Hamburger Helper cost 69 cents. For $1.58, you could feed a family of 4 a hot dinner. Compare that to buying separate ingredients for a from-scratch meal, and Hamburger Helper was a bargain. Working mothers loved Hamburger Helper because it eliminated meal planning and reduced cooking time. Keep a few boxes in the pantry, keep ground beef in the freezer, and you always had dinner ready in 20 minutes. The popcorn with an identity crisis. Screaming yellow Zonkers was glazed popcorn in a bright yellow box with psychedelic lettering, and it was one of the strangest products to achieve mainstream grocery store success in the 1970s. The name alone was memorable, absurd, attention-grabbing, impossible to forget. The product was simple: popcorn coated in a sweet yellow glaze made from sugar, butter, and coloring. The coating was thick enough to turn the popcorn bright yellow and sweet enough to qualify as candy rather than snack food. The texture was crunchy, sticky, and addictive. The box was the real attraction. Bright yellow with black lettering covered in bizarre copy that read like stream of consciousness rambling. The back of the box featured jokes, puzzles, and nonsensical text that kids would read while eating. The packaging was as much entertainment as the product inside. Lincoln Snacks Company, based in Illinois, created Screaming Yellow Zonkers in 1968, and by the early 1970s it had achieved national distribution. The meal in a glass. Carnation instant breakfast promised complete nutrition in a glass, vitamins, minerals, protein, and calories in a powder you mixed with milk. For busy 1970s families, it was breakfast when there was no time for breakfast. The powder came in packets or canisters in flavors like chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and coffee. You'd pour the powder into a glass, add milk, stir vigorously, and drink. The result was a thick, sweet beverage that tasted like a milkshake but was marketed as nutrition. The appeal was multi-layered. For parents, it was a way to ensure kids got breakfast, even when they refused to eat solid food. For teenagers, it was a quick meal before rushing to school. For dieters, it was a controlled calorie meal replacement. For elderly people, it was an easy way to get nutrition without cooking. Grocery stores displayed Carnation instant breakfast in multiple locations, near breakfast cereals, in the diet food section, and in the pharmacy area near nutritional supplements. This multi-location strategy reflected the product's versatility. The nutritional claims were prominent on the packaging. As much protein as 2 eggs, more vitamin C than orange juice, complete breakfast nutrition. In the 1970s, before nutritional skepticism became widespread, these claims were taken at face value. The chocolate flavor was most popular, tasting like chocolate milk, but thicker and sweeter. The vanilla was versatile. You could add it to coffee for a protein boost or mix it with fruit for a smoothie. The strawberry was polarizing. Some people loved it. Others found it too artificial. The soup that came in an envelope. Lipton Cup of Soup was dehydrated soup mix in individual packets that you mixed with hot water to create instant soup. In the 1970s, it was revolutionary. Soup without a can, without cooking, without even a bowl if you used a mug. The packets were small envelopes containing powder that looked like dust but smelled like soup. Chicken noodle was the most popular, followed by tomato and vegetable. You'd tear open the packet, pour the powder into a cup, add boiling water, stir, and wait a minute for it to thicken. The result was thin soup, more broth than substance, but it was hot, flavorful, and satisfying in a way that transcended its actual nutritional value. The appeal was psychological as much as physical. Hot soup felt like comfort, like care, like someone had made you a meal even though you'd made it yourself in 60 seconds. 10 items down, and we're just getting started. But notice the pattern. Almost every product so far was about convenience. The 1970s were when American food culture shifted from cooking everything from scratch to embracing shortcuts. Working mothers needed quick solutions. Busy families needed easy meals. And food companies responded with products that promised to save time without sacrificing quality. The next 5 items take that convenience obsession even further. These are products that seemed almost too convenient, too easy, too good to be true. And in some cases, they were. The cocoa that came in packets. Swiss Miss Instant Hot Chocolate transformed a labor-intensive drink into something you could make in 30 seconds. Before it, hot chocolate required milk, cocoa powder, sugar, and stirring over heat. After it, you just added hot water to a packet. The packets were small envelopes containing chocolate powder mixed with powdered milk, sugar, and stabilizers. The powder was fine and uniform, designed to dissolve completely in hot water without clumping. You'd tear open the packet, pour it into a mug, add hot water, stir briefly, and have hot chocolate. The taste was sweet, chocolatey, and comforting. It wasn't as rich as hot chocolate made with real milk and cocoa, but it was consistent and reliable. Every packet tasted the same, which was reassuring in an era when home cooking results varied wildly. The side dish that didn't need turkey. Stovetop stuffing, introduced in 1972, revolutionized Thanksgiving and made stuffing a year-round side dish. Before it, stuffing required bread cubes, vegetables, broth, and baking time. After it, you just added water and butter to a box mix and cooked it on the stove for 5 minutes. The box contained seasoned bread cubes and a packet of flavoring. The bread cubes were small, uniform, and dried to the point where they'd absorb liquid quickly. The seasoning packet contained herbs, salt, and flavor enhancers that created the taste of traditional stuffing. The preparation was remarkably simple. Boil water and butter in a saucepan, add the bread cubes and seasoning. Stir, cover, remove from heat, let stand 5 minutes. Fluff with a fork and serve. Total time, 7 minutes. Total skill required. Ability to boil water. This simplicity was revolutionary. Stuffing had been a complicated side dish that required planning and skill. Stovetop made it accessible to anyone, regardless of cooking ability. Suddenly, stuffing appeared at weeknight dinners, not just holidays. The whipped topping. That wasn't cream, Cool Whip was whipped. Topping in a plastic tub, and it dominated the 1970s dessert landscape despite containing no cream. It was oil, water, sugar, and stabilizers whipped into a foam that looked like whipped cream, but lasted for weeks in the refrigerator. The product came frozen, which was part of its appeal. You'd buy it in the frozen food aisle, take it home, and let it thaw in the refrigerator overnight. Once thawed, it stayed fresh for weeks, unlike real whipped cream that would separate and spoil in days. The texture was lighter and fluffier than whipped cream, with a sweetness that was pleasant but artificial. It held its shape perfectly. You could pipe it, spread it, or dollop it, and it would maintain that form. This stability made it popular for decorated desserts. Grocery stores displayed Cool Whip in the frozen dessert section, usually near ice cream and frozen pies. A 12-ounce tub cost about 69 cents, cheaper than buying cream and whipping it yourself. The convenience and shelf life made it a staple in most 1970s refrigerators. The versatility was remarkable. Cool Whip-topped pies, cakes, puddings, Jell-O, fruit, coffee, hot chocolate, and anything else that might benefit from a creamy topping. Some people ate it straight from the tub with a spoon, treating it like a dessert itself. The product also became a recipe ingredient. Cool Whip desserts became a category, recipes that used Cool Whip as a primary ingredient rather than just a topping. Fruit salads mixed with Cool Whip, pudding pies made with Cool Whip, frozen desserts that were essentially Cool Whip with flavorings. The advertising emphasized convenience and versatility. Commercials showed mothers quickly assembling impressive-looking desserts using Cool Whip, suggesting that anyone could create bakery-quality results at home. The tagline, "Make it special, make it Cool Whip," positioned the product as an upgrade rather than a shortcut. Cool Whip came in different sizes, 8-ounce, 12-ounce, and 16-ounce tubs, and different varieties. The chip that came in a can, Pringles, appeared in the early 1970s and immediately stood out because of the packaging, a tall, cylindrical can instead of a bag. The chips themselves were also different. Uniform saddle-shaped crisps made from dehydrated potato flakes rather than sliced potatoes. The can was distinctive, tall, slim, with a foil seal and a plastic lid. The logo featured a mustachioed man with a bow tie, later named Julius Pringles. The can protected the chips from crushing, which was a significant advantage over bagged chips that often arrived broken. The chips were stacked neatly inside the can, each one identical in size and shape. This uniformity was achieved through the manufacturing process. Potato flakes were mixed with water and other ingredients, formed into dough, cut into shapes, and fried. The result was a chip that was technically a crisp rather than a traditional potato chip. The taste was different from regular chips, lighter, less potato-forward, more processed. Some people loved this consistency. Others missed the irregular, more potato-tasting quality of traditional chips. But Pringles carved out a significant market share by offering something different. Grocery stores displayed Pringles in the snack aisle, but the cans took up more shelf space than bags, so stores were initially reluctant to stock them. Procter & Gamble, the manufacturer, offered incentives and promotional displays to encourage retail adoption. The flavors in the 1970s were limited: original, sour cream and onion, and BBQ. Each variety had its fans, though original dominated sales. The flavoring was applied as a powder coating, giving the chips a uniform taste across every crisp. The price was higher than bagged chips, around $1.09 for a can compared to 79 cents for a bag of Lay's, but the can offered advantages: no broken chips, resealable packaging, and a novelty factor that justified the premium. The fruit snack you peeled off. Plastic fruit roll-ups appeared in the late 1970s and immediately became a lunchbox staple. These were sheets of fruit-flavored candy rolled up with plastic backing, designed to be peeled off and eaten in strips or pieces. The product came in a box containing individually wrapped rolls. Each roll was a thin sheet of fruit puree that had been dried into a leathery, chewy candy. The backing was cellophane that you'd peel away as you ate, revealing the colorful fruit sheet underneath. The flavors were fruit-based but highly artificial: strawberry, cherry, grape, apple. The colors were intensely bright: reds, purples, greens that didn't exist in nature. The taste was sweet and tangy, with a chewy texture that stuck slightly to your teeth. Kids loved fruit roll-ups because they were fun to eat. You could peel them into strips, roll them into balls, or bite shapes out of them. The interactive nature made them more engaging than regular candy. The plastic backing also became a toy. Kids would stick it to their faces or use it as a temporary tattoo backing. Grocery stores displayed fruit roll-ups in the snack aisle or near lunch supplies. A box of 6 rolls cost about $1.29, making each roll about 22 cents. This was expensive compared to other fruit snacks, but the novelty justified the premium. The marketing positioned fruit roll-ups as a fruit snack rather than candy, which made parents more willing to buy them. The packaging emphasized "made with real fruit," even though the actual fruit content was minimal. But in the 1970s, before nutritional skepticism became widespread, these claims were accepted. The product was also marketed as portable and non-messy, perfect for lunchboxes and car trips. Unlike fresh fruit that could bruise or leak, fruit roll-ups were sealed, stable, and didn't require refrigeration. This convenience made them popular with working parents who packed lunches the night before. Fruit roll-ups became a trading commodity in school cafeterias. Kids would trade sandwiches, chips, or other items for fruit roll-ups. Some flavors were more valuable than others. Strawberry was common, but grape or cherry commanded premium trades. The seasoning that looked like pebbles. Hamburger Rocks were seasoning pellets designed to be mixed into ground beef before forming patties. Each rock was a compressed pellet of salt, spices, and flavor enhancers that would dissolve during cooking, distributing seasoning throughout the meat. The product came in a shaker bottle, and the rocks looked like small brown pebbles. The concept was that you'd add a tablespoon of rocks per pound of ground beef, mix thoroughly, form patties, and cook. The rocks would dissolve, seasoning the meat from the inside rather than just the surface. The appeal was convenience and consistency. Instead of measuring multiple spices, you just added rocks. Instead of worrying about uneven seasoning, the rocks dissolved uniformly. For people who weren't confident cooks, Hamburger Rocks eliminated variables. Grocery stores displayed Hamburger Rocks near the meat department or in the spice aisle. The bottle cost about $1.49, which seemed expensive for seasoning but lasted for multiple pounds of meat. The convenience justified the cost for many families. The taste was savory and slightly salty, with hints of onion, garlic, and pepper. It wasn't complex or sophisticated, but it made hamburgers taste consistently good. This reliability was valuable for families who grilled frequently and wanted predictable results. The advertising emphasized foolproof results. Commercials showed inexperienced cooks making perfect hamburgers using Hamburger Rocks, suggesting that anyone could achieve professional quality burgers. The tagline, "Season from the inside out," positioned the product as superior to surface seasoning. The product had a relatively short lifespan. It appeared in the mid-1970s and was gone by the early 1980s. The concept was sound, but the execution had problems. The rocks sometimes didn't fully dissolve, leaving hard bits in the cooked meat. The seasoning was also too salty for some tastes. Hamburger Rocks represent a broader trend in 1970s food products, taking simple cooking tasks and creating products to make them even simpler. The NASA-inspired energy bar, space food sticks, were chewy energy bars marketed as astronaut food, and in the early 1970s they were everywhere. Pillsbury created them as a terrestrial version of the food sticks NASA developed for space missions, and the space connection was the entire marketing strategy. The sticks came in a foil wrapper, individually packaged for portability. They were dense, chewy, and came in flavors like chocolate, peanut butter, and caramel. The texture was similar to Tootsie Rolls, but less sticky, designed to be eaten without creating crumbs or mess. The packaging featured space imagery, rockets, astronauts, stars. The messaging emphasized that this was the same food astronauts ate in space, though the actual NASA version was different. But in the 1970s, when space exploration was still exciting and relevant, this connection was powerful. Kids loved space food sticks because they felt futuristic and special. Eating one made you feel connected to the space program, like you were participating in something important. The individual wrapping also made them perfect for lunchboxes and backpacks. Grocery stores displayed space food sticks in the snack aisle or near breakfast bars. A box of 14 sticks cost about $1.49, making each stick about 11 cents. This was comparable to candy bars, but positioned as healthier because of the space connection and energy marketing. The taste was sweet and dense, with a texture that required significant chewing. The chocolate variety was most popular, tasting like a cross between a Tootsie Roll and a brownie. The peanut butter variety was polarizing. Some people loved it, others found it too sticky and hard to eat. The product was marketed as an energy source for active kids and adults. The packaging claimed the sticks provided quick energy and were nutritious. The party dip that came in an envelope. Lipton onion soup mix wasn't just soup, it was the foundation of 1970s party dips. The recipe was simple. Mix 1 envelope of soup, mix with 1 container of sour cream, refrigerate for an hour, serve with chips. This combination became so ubiquitous it was simply called onion dip. The soup mix came in a small envelope containing dehydrated onions, beef bouillon, and seasonings. When mixed with water, it made onion soup. When mixed with sour cream, it made the dip that appeared at every party, gathering, and potluck in the 1970s. The appeal was the transformation. Sour cream alone was tangy and plain. The soup mix added savory depth, onion flavor, and a slight saltiness that made it addictive. The dehydrated onions would rehydrate in the sour cream, creating texture and concentrated onion flavor. Grocery stores displayed Lipton onion soup mix in the soup aisle, often with recipe cards nearby showing the dip recipe. A box of 2 envelopes cost about 59 cents, and each envelope made enough dip for a party. This economy made it accessible to everyone. The dip became a social signifier. Every party had it. Every host made it. Not having onion dip at a gathering was almost unthinkable. It was expected, reliable, and universally accepted. Even people who didn't like onions would eat onion dip. The recipe appeared on the back of the soup mix box, but most people knew it by heart. 1 envelope, 1 container of sour cream. The proportions were perfect, not too thick, not too thin, not too oniony, not too bland. The recipe had been tested and refined until it was foolproof. Variations appeared over time. Some people added more onions, others mixed in bacon bits or used Greek yogurt instead of sour cream, but the basic recipe remained standard, the default version that everyone made. The soup mix also became a recipe ingredient beyond dip. Bugles were cone-shaped corn snacks that appeared in the late 1960s and became a 1970s staple. The shape was distinctive, perfect little cones that you could stick on your fingertips before eating, which became the standard way to consume them. The snack was made from corn masa that was shaped into cones and fried until crispy. The result was a crunchy, slightly salty snack with a corn flavor that was mild enough to pair with various seasonings. The original variety was lightly salted. Nacho cheese and ranch flavors appeared later in the decade. The finger-wearing ritual was universal. Kids would put Bugles on their fingertips, pretending they had witch fingers or claws, then eat them one by one. This interactive play made Bugles more engaging than flat chips or standard snacks. Grocery stores displayed Bugles in the snack aisle in distinctive boxes. Unlike most chips that came in bags, Bugles came in boxes with a foil liner inside. This packaging protected the fragile cones from crushing and made them easier to stack on shelves. A box cost about 69 cents, comparable to other snacks. The box contained about 6 ounces of Bugles, enough for several servings or one enthusiastic snacker. The resealable nature of the box was an advantage. You could eat some, close the box, and the remaining Bugles stayed fresh. The texture was unique, crispy but not hard, with a satisfying crunch that was different from potato chips. The corn flavor was subtle, serving as a base for seasonings rather than dominating the taste. This versatility made Bugles popular for both plain snacking and flavored varieties. The advertising emphasized the fun shape and the finger-wearing behavior. A canned breakfast that fried up crispy. Libby's corned beef hash was canned meat and potatoes that became a 1970s breakfast staple. The can contained corned beef, potatoes, and seasonings pressed into a dense loaf that you'd slice and fry until crispy on the outside and soft inside. The product came in a distinctive can, shorter and wider than standard cans, with a key attached to the bottom for opening. You'd use the key to roll back the can's lid, then slide out the solid cylinder of hash. The hash would maintain its can shape until you broke it apart for cooking. The preparation was simple. Slice the hash into half-inch thick rounds. Fry in a hot skillet with a little oil until both sides were brown and crispy. The exterior would develop a crust, while the interior stayed soft and meaty. Serve with eggs and toast for a complete breakfast. The taste was salty, meaty, and satisfying. The corned beef provided protein and flavor. The potatoes added bulk and absorbed the beef's saltiness. The combination was hearty enough to sustain manual laborers through morning shifts. Grocery stores displayed corned beef hash near Spam and other canned meats. A can cost about 89 cents and contained enough hash for 2 generous servings or 3 moderate ones. This economy made it popular with working-class families and single men who needed quick filling meals. The product had a military connection. Corned beef hash had been a military ration for decades. Many men who'd served in World War II or Korea had eaten it regularly and continued buying it as civilians. This familiarity drove sales among older consumers. The hash was also popular for camping and outdoor activities. The can was durable and didn't require refrigeration until opened. You could pack it for camping trips, fry it over a campfire, and have a hot breakfast without carrying perishable ingredients. Today's corned beef hash market is smaller, with fewer brands and less shelf space. 20 items down, and you're remembering grocery stores that don't exist anymore. Aisles that were organized differently. Products that seemed permanent, but vanished completely.
I think that's everything, unless the kids spotted something else.
We want the candy cigarettes.
Oh, those are popular. That comes to $12.50.
The 1970s grocery store was a specific cultural moment. after the introduction of convenience foods, but before health consciousness changed everything. These next 5 items represent the peak of that moment, when convenience and novelty mattered more than nutrition or natural ingredients, when artificial flavors and colors were features, not bugs, when space age was a compliment, not a warning. The alien cereal that tasted like Cap'n Crunch. Quisp was a corn-based cereal featuring a pink alien mascot, and in the early 1970s, it competed directly with Cap'n Crunch for the sugary cereal market. The cereal pieces were saucer-shaped, reinforcing the space theme, and tasted sweet, corny, and slightly vanilla-flavored. The mascot, Quisp, was a pink alien with a propeller on his head. The character appeared in commercials, on the box, and in comic strips on the back panel. Quisp had a rivalry with Quake, a mascot for a companion cereal, and the two competed in advertising campaigns where consumers voted for their favorite. The cereal itself was crunchy and sweet, staying crispy in milk longer than many competitors. This crunch retention was a selling point. Kids could eat slowly without the cereal turning to mush. The pieces were small and uniform, making them easy to eat by the spoonful. Grocery stores displayed Quisp in the cereal aisle, usually on middle or bottom shelves where kid-targeted cereals lived. A box cost about 79 cents. Standard for sugary cereals. The box featured the Quisp character prominently, with bright colors designed to attract children's attention. The marketing was aggressive and memorable. Commercials featured Quisp in space adventures, battling Quake, or encountering various challenges. The ads were entertaining enough that kids would watch them repeatedly, increasing brand recognition and desire. The cereal also included prizes, small toys or games inside the box. Kids would dig through the cereal to find the prize, often eating the cereal just to get to the toy. These prizes ranged from plastic figures to decoder rings to stickers. Quisp faced an identity crisis in the late 1970s when Quaker Oats decided to discontinue either Quisp or Quake based on consumer preference. Quisp won the vote and continued production, while Quake was discontinued. This victory gave Quisp a cult following. However, Quisp's distribution became limited by the 1980s. The pie made from crackers. Ritz mock. Apple pie wasn't a standalone product, but a recipe printed on Ritz cracker boxes that became so popular, Nabisco eventually sold a mix version. The recipe used Ritz crackers, sugar, lemon juice, and cinnamon to create a pie filling that supposedly tasted like apple pie, despite containing no apples. The recipe originated during the Depression when apples were expensive or unavailable. Ritz crackers, when soaked in a sugar lemon syrup, softened and took on a texture similar to cooked apples. The lemon provided tartness, the cinnamon provided spice, and the sugar provided sweetness. All the flavors of apple pie without actual apples. By the 1970s, the recipe had become a curiosity. Apples were readily available and affordable, so there was no practical reason to make mock apple pie, but the recipe persisted because it was interesting, because it appeared on every box of Ritz crackers, and because some people genuinely enjoyed it. Nabisco capitalized on this interest by selling a mock apple pie mix that included pre-measured ingredients and simplified instructions. The mix came in a box containing everything except the Ritz crackers and pie crust, which you'd buy separately. The result was a pie that looked like apple pie and tasted close to apple pie. The texture was similar, soft, slightly mushy, with a hint of crunch from the crackers. The flavor had the right sweetness and tartness, but it wasn't quite right. Something was missing. The apple flavor itself, the natural fruit taste that defined apple pie. Some people loved mock apple pie, either for nostalgic reasons or because they genuinely preferred the taste. Total cost was around $2.20, comparable to making apple pie from scratch. The granola bar, before granola bars. Carnation breakfast bars appeared in the mid-1970s as a portable breakfast solution, individually wrapped bars that combined grains, fruit, and nutrients into a package you could eat on the go. They were essentially granola bars before granola bars became a category. The bars came in a box containing 6 individually wrapped bars. Flavors included chocolate chip, peanut butter, and various fruit combinations. The texture was chewy and dense, similar to Fig Newtons, but with more grains and less moisture. The marketing positioned them as complete breakfast nutrition in a convenient form. The packaging emphasized vitamins, minerals, and the complete breakfast concept that Carnation had pioneered with instant breakfast. The message was that busy people could still get proper nutrition without sitting down for a traditional meal. Grocery stores displayed breakfast bars in multiple locations, near cereals, in the diet food section, and near breakfast items. This multi-location strategy reflected the product's versatility. A box of 6 bars cost about $1.49, making each bar about 25 cents, comparable to a bowl of cereal with milk. The taste was pleasant, but not exciting. The chocolate chip variety was most popular, with small chocolate chips distributed throughout a grain-based bar. The fruit varieties were less successful. The dried fruit pieces were often hard, and the overall flavor was bland. The bars were marketed to multiple demographics: busy professionals who skipped breakfast, eaters who wanted controlled portions, students who needed quick energy, parents who wanted nutritious options for kids. This broad targeting helped establish the product quickly. The advertising showed people eating breakfast bars in various situations, commuting to work. The soup that required only hot water. Lipton Cup of Soup was dehydrated soup in individual packets that you mixed with hot water to create instant soup. In the 1970s, when instant gratification was becoming standard, Cup of Soup represented the ultimate convenience. Soup without cooking, without cans, without even a bowl if you used a mug. The packets were small envelopes containing powder that looked like dust but smelled like soup. Chicken noodle was the most popular, followed by tomato and vegetable. You'd tear open the packet, pour the powder into a cup, add boiling water, stir, and wait a minute for it to thicken. The result was thin soup, more broth than substance, but it was hot, flavorful, and satisfying in a way that transcended its actual nutritional value. The appeal was psychological as much as physical. Hot soup felt like comfort, like care, like someone had made you a meal, even though you'd made it yourself in 60 seconds. Grocery stores displayed Cup of Soup boxes near the tea and coffee, positioning it as a hot beverage alternative rather than a meal. A box of 4 packets cost about 89 cents, making each serving about 22 cents. This was cheaper than canned soup and more convenient. The chicken noodle variety had tiny dehydrated noodles that rehydrated in the hot water, becoming soft and slippery. There were also dehydrated vegetable pieces, carrots, peas, celery, that plumped up and added texture. The broth was salty and rich with MSG, which gave it an umami depth that made it more satisfying than the ingredients suggested. Office workers loved Cup of Soup because it required only hot water, which most offices had. You could keep packets in your desk drawer and have hot soup for lunch without leaving the building. This convenience made it popular with secretaries, office managers, and anyone who worked in buildings with limited lunch options. The tomato variety was controversial. Some people loved its sweet tart flavor. Others found it too acidic or too sweet. It was thinner than the chicken noodle, more like flavored water than soup, but it had devoted fans who preferred it to all other varieties. Lipton expanded the line throughout the 1970s, adding cream of chicken, beef noodle, and vegetable varieties. They also introduced hearty versions with more noodles and vegetables, trying to position Cup of Soup as a light meal rather than just a snack. The product was also popular with dieters. But the 1970s version represented a specific innovation, making soup as convenient as instant coffee. A personal pizza that lived in your freezer. Celeste Pizza, for one, was a small frozen pizza designed for individual consumption, and in the 1970s it represented a revolution in portion control and convenience. Before it, pizza was communal. You ordered a large pie and shared it. After it, pizza could be personal and private. The pizza came in a small box containing one 7-inch pizza. The crust was thin and crispy. The sauce was tangy and slightly sweet. The cheese was mozzarella that melted into a bubbly golden layer. Toppings were limited: cheese, pepperoni, sausage, or deluxe with multiple toppings. The preparation was simple. Preheat oven to 425-degree on. Remove pizza from box and plastic wrap. Place directly on oven rack. Bake for 12 to 14 minutes until cheese is bubbly and crust is golden. Let cool for a minute, then eat directly from the oven rack or transfer to a plate. The appeal was the individual portion. You didn't need to share. You didn't need to coordinate with others. You could have pizza whenever you wanted without ordering delivery or making a full-size pizza. This independence was liberating, especially for single people, teenagers, and anyone living alone. Grocery stores displayed Celeste pizzas in the frozen food aisle, usually in a dedicated section with other frozen pizzas. The ability to have hot pizza at 2 a.m. without delivery was revolutionary. The product expanded throughout the 1970s, adding new varieties and sizes. But the original Pizza for One remained the flagship, the product that established personal-size frozen pizza as a category. Today's frozen pizza market is enormous, with countless brands and varieties. But Celeste Pizza for One was the original, the product that first suggested pizza could be individual, convenient, and acceptable at any time of day or night, then vanished completely. Your mom bought them weekly. You ate them without question. They represented a moment when convenience was king and artificial meant modern. Which one brings back your strongest memory? Comment below and subscribe for more forgotten food history.